It's entertaining. You're sure to pop a stench in Toonsylvania.
Toonsylvania is an animated horror comedy television series that aired in 1998 on Fox Kids as part of the No Yell Motel block of shows.
Next on Fox Kids, take the ride.
Alongside shows like Goosebumps. Toonsylvania is DreamWorks Studios' first animated series and was produced in part by Steven Spielberg and created by Bill Kopp, who was an animator on The Tracy Ullman Show, which was a sketch comedy variety show that debuted on Fox in 1987, and is also where The Simpsons would first arrive on television as a series of short animation. On September 14th, 1998, Toonsylvania would be moved to Monday afternoons until its cancellation on January 18th, 1999, after 2 seasons containing 21 episodes. The episode structure of Toonsylvania was similar to an anthology series, with episodes being broken up into a series of segmented short cartoons. The main segmented cartoon is named Frankenstein and centers around the characters Dr. Vic Frankenstein, voiced by David Warner, who played Keith Jennings in The Omen and voiced Herbert Landon in the Spider-Man animated series. Dr. Vic Frankenstein's assistant, Igor, voiced by Wayne Knight, best known for portraying the character Newman on Seinfeld, and Frankenstein's monster, whose name is Phil, voiced by Brad Garrett, who made a fool of himself on 2015's Super High Roller Celebrity Shootout.
Do you like birds?
What's happened?
Do you like birds?
Are you watching the game at all, or do you have something you have to do?
Setting the scene.
The Frankenstein cartoons are used to transition into 4 other segmented animations, such as Igor turning on a TV to watch Night of the Living Fred, which focuses around a family called the Deadmans.
Remember, you're a deadman, and you can't keep a deadman down.
Or sometimes when Igor turns on the TV, a different animated segment airs called Attack of the Killer Bee Movies. Or when Phil does something bad, Igor will read him a tale from Melissa Screech's Morbid Morals, which centers on a girl named Melissa Screech. There's also Igor's Science Minute, a short, sometimes musical themed segment where Igor gives short science lessons. The Toonsylvania TV show has never had a physical release containing all episodes from both seasons. As far as I can tell from researching Toonsylvania, the only time the full series has even been on a streaming service was on Latin America's Netflix in 2014. There's even some posts about Toonsylvania being lost media. There is one piece of Toonsylvania media that did see a physical release, and that was a VHS released on August 31st, 1999, and is what we are going to be diving into in this video. The 1999 VHS contains 16 selected cartoon segments, and is where I first heard of Toonsylvania, back when movie rental stores were still a thing. The store by me had this Toonsylvania VHS in a free kids section, and I remember renting it a bunch of times. I actually rented it enough that when the video rental store was beginning to go out of business, the owner just gave it to me. And here it is, probably 20 years later. The VHS has since been upscaled to HD, and that is the footage we will be using today. Baby Human is the first segment and starts with Dr. Vic telling Igor and Phil to clean the laboratory. Phil offers to get a wet-dry vacuum.
Should Phil get the wet-dry vac out, Igor?
But Igor tells him that they have more important things to do. Igor is going to prove that he is the true genius of the castle with his new invention. He pours some type of liquid into a machine, which then explodes, revealing a baby. The baby then bites off Igor's head.
Now, naughty little baby. Spit Uncle Igor's head out. Naughty, naughty, naughty.
Dr. Vic enters to see what all the noise is, and Igor hides the baby under a wooden crate. The baby breaks free, biting Igor, and Dr. Vic attempts to hold the baby, which proceeds to bite him in the hand, and start eating its way through the castle, escaping to the basement.
It got away. It's loose in the house.
Dr. Vic, Igor, and Phil are all afraid of going into the basement, but they proceed anyway. While looking for the baby, it suddenly appears on a chain and lowers itself onto Dr. Vic and attempts to swallow him whole, and runs off again. They all agree that the only way to stop the baby is to blow up the castle. They have a rocket in the castle, which they attempt to rig to explode. However, the baby walks up while they are inside and hits the ignition button, causing the rocket to blast off. The rocket goes around the moon and crashes back into the castle. The baby has eaten everything in the castle.
You horrible little hunchback. Look at our beautiful castle. It's practically eaten away.
But Igor notices something the baby hasn't eaten: the spinach. The baby comes running, and Igor holds up the spinach, causing the baby to stay back, like a demon being exorcised. They surround the baby with spinach, and the baby melts into a puddle on the floor.
It's over.
Dr. Vic begins to dismantle Igor's invention. Igor goes to dump the liquid he used down the drain, but he trips, dropping the liquid, causing a bunch of identical babies to appear. They devour the castle, the town, and then the whole world, ending the first segment. Next, we have Phil and Igor sitting on the couch about to watch TV. The TV turns on to reveal the next segment, which is our first introduction to the Night of the Living Fred animations, the Dead Dog Day afternoon. These segments focus on a family named the Deadmans. The mother's name is Stephanie, voiced by Valerie Pappas. The father, Dedgar, voiced by Matt Frewer in Season 1, and Jess Harnell in Season 2, and their two children, Ashley, voiced by Kath Stossee, and Fred, voiced by Billy West. Fred also has a dog named Frisky. Dead Dog Day afternoon starts out with Fred heading home from a baseball game. His dad, Dedgar, asks Fred how the game was.
How is the big game?
Fred reveals that he has a baseball stuck where his eye should be. His dad tells his mom, Stephanie, to get a plunger. She plunges the ball out of Fred's eye while his dad attempts to give him a motivational speech while over-sharpening a pencil. The speech makes Fred feel better,
Sure thing, Dad.
and he takes his dog Frisky out for a walk. His dad wishes he could go too, but he has to stamp papers. Fred walks with Frisky down to the park, and they play a game of fetch. Fred eventually notices a dog show sign and decides to sign Frisky up. The man running the dog show gives Fred the number 13, and they take their spot in the competition. The first thing Frisky has to do is jump over a ramp. He nails it, but the judges all give him zeros. Next up is hurdles, and Fred just drags Frisky right through them, resulting in 4 more zeros. And then they do a flaming hoop jump. All zeros once again. Skiing, again all zeros. Shot put, all zeros. Frisky and Fred are revealed to be in last place, but there's one more part of this competition to go. The dogs are to follow the stay command as the owners stand across the field. This final event is worth 100 points. The stay command is given, and one dog quickly runs off, followed by a poodle. Half a day passes, and it is now nighttime. 3 dogs get scared and whimper off, leaving only one other dog and Frisky. The other dog gives up, and Frisky wins. They are rewarded a first-place trophy. Fred and Frisky sit on a dock overlooking the water to reflect on their victory. Frisky falls over. Now we have an Igor's Science Minute, and this one is about babysitting Phil. Igor plans on using cloning so Phil can have a playmate. He is going to clone Phil so Phil can play with himself.
Hey, there's kids watching.
Igor starts by taking a tissue sample out of Phil's brain and feeds it to a chicken. He puts the chicken in a shaker machine, and it starts to run around laying eggs. The eggs hatch into full-grown evil clones of Phil. Igor panics and breaks the fourth wall by demanding the show to fade out, which it does. And the next segment begins, and is revealed to be a Melissa Screech's Morbid Morals short. This one is titled The Boogeyman. These short animations focus on Melissa Screech, voiced by Nancy Cartwright, who also voiced Bart Simpson, and usually revolve around Melissa being a brat and learning lessons the hard way. The Melissa shorts are spoken in rhymes similar to the Disney Alice in Wonderland cartoon.
And she heard the sound of someone's shoes. And she began imagining Flash on the evening news.
The short begins with Igor scolding Phil for being out of bed. Phil reveals he was getting spare parts, like Igor.
Phil gets spare parts, like Igor.
Igor tells Phil to be quiet and drags him back to bed, and tells him that if he's out of bed late, that the boogeyman will get him. Phil gets scared, and Igor pulls out a Melissa Screech Morbid Morals book. Igor then tells the story of how Melissa Screech would always stay up late. Melissa's mom tells her that the boogeyman is going to get her if she doesn't watch out. Melissa gets mad, thinking she's being lied to, and proceeds to jump rope outside through the night. It gets darker, and a nervous Melissa starts to head home when she thought she heard a sound. Melissa starts to run and imagines herself being caught by the boogeyman. She stops and realizes the noises were just the echoes of her shoes.
Phew! I only scared myself!
She opens the door to her house, and
The boogeyman leapt out and hauled her off with glee.
the boogeyman takes Melissa to his lair and attempts to turn her into soup. Then it shows Melissa's parents crying by a Melissa Screech tombstone before the boogeyman dumps her out of his cauldron and returns Melissa to her parents as she did not make good soup. Igor asks Phil what he thought of the story, and then the boogeyman appears and drags Igor and Phil into the book. After that, we have a Frankenstein short titled Where Granny? Dr. Vic tells Igor and Phil that his grandmother is to arrive at any moment, and he has some loose ends to tie up in the lab.
I'd like to tie up his loose ends.
Granny Frankenstein arrives, and Phil carries in her suitcases. Igor offers Granny a cup of tea, and Phil offers to go get it. There is probably 10 jars of tea, but Phil can't read, so he grabs a jar of wolfbane. They give Granny the tea, and she transforms into a werewolf, a were-granny. She turns back into a human, and Phil tells Igor. Igor says, very funny.
Very funny.
And then Granny turns into a were-granny again and attempts to swallow Igor. Phil and Igor run off, and Igor spots the open wolfbane jar and figures that's what turned Granny into a werewolf. Dr. Vic enters, and Igor is worried he will find out what happened. Dr. Vic goes to open the curtains, revealing a full moon. Granny turns, but Dr. Vic closes the curtains and does not notice. They sit down at a table to feed Granny, but Phil tells them all they have is mooncakes.
We got mooncakes.
Causing Granny to turn again. But Dr. Vic is getting a napkin from under the table, so he doesn't notice. Dr. Vic then offers to take Granny to the observatory. Igor panics and goes to research a cure. Dr. Vic goes to turn on the telescope for Granny, but the telescope takes 10 cents to run, and he doesn't have it. He leaves to go get a dime, and Igor rushes in to take Granny to his laboratory to try to cure her. Igor never finds a cure, and it comes time for Granny to leave. Dr. Vic says how nice it was to see his Granny, but she didn't seem like herself. Igor asks what he means, and Dr. Vic tells him that his Granny is a werewolf and has been her whole life.
I've never mentioned it to you two before, but Granny is a werewolf. Has been her whole life.
Granny drives off in a taxi. Phil and Igor are back on the couch, about to turn on the TV, which means it's another night of the Living Fred segment. This one is titled Voodoo Vacation, and starts out with the Deadmans on a plane heading to an island named Spago Spago.
We've begun our fabulous descent to the beautiful island paradise of Spago Spago.
The plane starts to crash out of the air. It makes a decent landing, and a hula girl welcomes the Deadmans to the island.
Flim Flam Manitoba Canada.
They get a car to go explore and find their hotel. Dedgar drives into a dangerous area, then off a cliff, and the car gets stuck in the mud. Stephanie spots a small village and figures it's the hotel. The island people begin to plan to eat the Deadmans. One islander gets a whiff of the Deadmans and says they better hurry as they smell like they are spoiling.
Tyra, Naomi, Ashley, Winona!
They throw the Deadmans in a cauldron and place it on a fire. The Deadmans believe they have been placed in a hot tub, and Dedgar thinks the Islanders are going to put a show on for them. They then see a totem statue that kind of looks like them. Fred starts splashing around, and the cauldron tumbles down the stairs. The Deadmen land on top of each other in a way that resembles the totem statue. The Islanders see this and mistake them for the great god Schmuckus. The Deadmans are put on a throne and presented with jewelry and crowns. However, Dedgar realizes that they're going to miss a tour they booked to a poi factory.
Oh my gosh, that's right. Oh, I've just got to find out what the heck poi is and how it's made.
They agree to quietly sneak away. They stumble onto a different group of Islanders who see them as imposters.
Like a big loogie, schmookus, baby.
So they tie the Deadmans to a raft and drift them out to sea. They leave happy, though.
But kids, just take a look at that sunset!
Oh, what a great idea this trip was, Dedgar.
Next up is another Igor Science Minute. This one is a song, and is about Igor removing Phil's brain to turn him into a flower pot.
A lousy monster, but he'll make a dandy planter.
Following that is another Melissa Screech story, titled Stop Making Ugly Faces, and begins with Phil making funny faces, and Igor has had enough of it, and begins to read a Melissa Screech book to teach Phil a lesson about making ugly faces. In the story, Melissa also makes funny faces. Melissa's mom tells her to stop, or else her face is going to get stuck that way.
Quit making nasty faces, or you'll get stuck that way, my dear.
Melissa didn't care, though, and continued on with the faces, until her face got stuck.
But then she found in horror that her ugly face was stuck.
Her parents try to fix her face. They call a psychiatrist who tries hypnotism, and even take her to a movie makeup woman. But nothing works, leaving Melissa with her funny face and unable to return to normal. She gets a job in a haunt, scaring people, and even lands a role as a monster and creature from the Blue Lagoon. Igor closes the book and asks Phil if he learned anything, but Phil is making a face like Melissa, causing Igor to run away. Phil laughs and returns to normal. Another Frankenstein cartoon is next, and it's titled Phil's Brain. Phil's brain starts outside the castle with Dr. Vic yelling at Igor about all the trash that is piling up. The garbage truck only comes once a year.
And that's tomorrow at noon.
Dr. Vic tells Igor to clean it up, but Igor says he can't, handing Dr. Vic a contract.
What do you mean you can't? Check my contract, sir.
Dr. Vic tells Phil to do it instead, and Igor tells Phil first to fill the bag, then close the top, then tie it shut. Then Igor leaves, and Phil spends all day and night trying to remember what Igor just told him. Igor returns and panics, saying the garbage truck will be there at noon. Phil tells Igor he might have a problem with his brain. Igor checks for a problem, and Phil's brain is lonely.
A problem? Of course I got a problem. I'm lonely.
Igor confers with what appears to be a clone of himself, who shows him the Lonely Brains column in the newspaper. He instantly gets a mail-order brain and runs to find Phil. The two brains hit it off right away and get married, where it is revealed that their names are Larry Cortex and Cerebellum. Once the honeymoon phase is over, Igor tells Phil and his brains to start cleaning. Cerebellum gets mad, calling Igor Cue Ball.
Listen up, Cue Ball. Larry's a married man now. He's got responsibilities.
And saying Larry Cortex is a married man and has responsibilities now, and has a list of things for him to do. Some time passes, and Larry Cortex has built a house around Phil's head. Igor, frustrated, decides to try to get Cerebellum to leave Larry by taking Larry out to a show in the town. They return, and Cerebellum starts yelling at Larry and tells him it's over, and she has met somebody else. Larry asks who.
Stu, Phil's pancreas.
Larry destroys the house on Phil's head. Igor calms him down and tells him cleaning up might help him get his mind off of Cerebellum. He agrees, and Phil and his brain start cleaning. They get the trash out just in time to be picked up. And proceed to celebrate and trash the castle yet again. Dr. Vic returns to see the mess and kicks Igor through a hole in the ceiling. Another Deadman short is next, and this one is titled Football and Other Body Parts. Ashley is practicing cheerleading when Fred walks in, sad that he never gets to play in the football game because the coach won't put him in. Stephanie tells Fred she's sure they will put him in tomorrow. Tomorrow comes and we are outside the stadium. Stephanie helps Ashley with her hair and Dedgar helps Fred put on his shoulder pads.
I'll help you put your shoulder pads on, son.
Thanks, Dad.
The game begins and Fred is told to carry the water. Meanwhile, Ashley is trying out for cheerleading. A girl named Heather tells Ashley if she can do the splits as good as her, she can be on the team. Ashley distracts them and pops her leg off to do the splits. The girls seem impressed. Back in the football game, Fred is giving a player named Moose water. He keeps demanding more, and Fred eventually blasts him with the fire hydrant.
Here's some more. Oops.
In the stands, Dedgar lifts up his head to get a better view. He notices Fred hasn't been put in yet. A few of the players are shown to have been taken out on a stretcher, and Ashley knocks out 2 more while cheering on the bench. The coach realizes they're out of players and puts Fred in.
Left. Hey, Deadman, look alive. You're going in.
Heather loses her pom-pom, so Ashley pops off her head and hands it to her. Heather doesn't notice that it's not a pom-pom. The football team is down by 6, and they agree to throw Fred the ball, as the other team wouldn't expect it.
We are giving you the ball.
Fred catches the ball, his parents cheer him on, and he starts running. An opponent pulls off his right arm, then his left, then his right leg, then his left leg. He scoots along and gets dogpiled, resulting in his head flying up through the field goal and landing in the touchdown zone. Fred's team wins. Heather realizes Ashley's head is not a pom-pom and faints. Dedgar tells Fred he's proud of him, and they leave the stadium.
Great job today, son. I am really proud of you.
Now, there's another Igor's Science Minute. This one is also a song and starts out with Phil and Igor at a diner when an earthquake starts to take place. A big boy type sign falls on top of Igor, transforming him into Elvis, and he begins to sing a song called the Earthquake Boogie.
A whole lot of quaking going on at 6.0 on the Richter scale. The epicenter is the place to be.
Maximum seismic activity.
Next up is a Melissa Screech tale titled Here Thar Be Monsters, and opens with Phil telling Igor about his book report on Columbus and how he proved the world was round. Igor tells him the world is flat and begins to tell Phil the real story of Columbus with the Melissa Screech Morbid Morals book. Melissa is in school and tells her version of the Columbus story. It shows Melissa on Columbus's ship and she yells at him, saying that the world is flat, and if they sailed too far, they would fall right off the edge. Columbus told her to shut up, so she tied him up and walked him off the plank, declaring that she is in charge now. She gets the ship lost, and the map says,
On the map it read, Here thar be monstrous beasts.
She calls it fake and starts scanning the sea when she spots a serpent-like monster. The serpent goes to swallow the ships, they escape, but they are now sailing off the edge of the world. The serpent monster appears and swallows the ship's whole. The ships land in the serpent's stomach. Columbus had also been swallowed and starts yelling at Melissa.
Because of you, all the histories have been changed.
And they are all slowly digested. Igor closes the book and Phil agrees the world is flat. Igor opens a door and falls off the edge of the world. Next up is our last Frankenstein cartoon, and it's titled Darla Doily Demon Doll. Igor is watching TV when Phil starts searching for something. Phil is looking for a present because it is his right foot's birthday.
Phil's right foot has birthday today.
Igor forgot it was Phil's birthday and rushes to a nearby toy shop. He remembers that Phil had asked for a Darla Doily doll, and Igor walks inside and asks for the doll. The shopkeeper explains it's their biggest seller and they are all sold out. Conveniently, a man walks in holding a Darla Doily doll, demanding the shopkeeper takes it back. The shopkeeper asks why.
I'll show you the problem. Take a look at this.
The man throws the doll on the counter and storms off. Igor asks the man how much he wants for the doll. The man says,
$7 million.
Igor reluctantly pays. He wraps the doll up and gives it to Phil. Phil opens it and is happy, until he pulls the string on the doll's back.
My name is Darla Doily, and I want to cut off your head.
He tells Igor, but he is watching TV and tells Phil not to bother him. Phil goes to bed and the doll disappears. He wakes up Igor to tell him that the doll is after him. Then she opens the door. The doll chases them through the castle. They hide under Dr. Vic's bed and tell him what's going on. He throws them out. They reappear, and so does the doll. Dr. Vic flips the bed into the wall, and they escape into a hatch that was under the bed. They block themselves in a room, and Igor gives Phil a list of things to go get.
And bring me a set of injection molded plastic arms and legs, the box of weapons, some camouflage fabric, a sewing machine, a tape recorder, and some string.
Darla Doily busts through the door, and Igor reveals a small soldier toy. The soldier chases after Darla, and an explosion is heard from down the stairs. They go down, and the soldier says it was a trap. They get stuck, and Darla attempts to blow up Igor and Phil, but Igor pulls the cord on Darla and attaches it to the explosive, sending it flying in her direction. An explosion is seen, and pieces of the Darla Doily doll fall down the stairs.
I'm Darla Doily, and this wasn't supposed to happen.
Dr. Vic fixes up the soldier and gives it to Phil. Phil says he likes his new toy, and they go back to bed.
Good night, little soldier.
We see Igor and Phil in front of the TV once again. They click the remote at each other until it is two Phils on the couch, and they turn on the TV, revealing Bang, our final Night of the Living Fred short. It starts with Stephanie giving the kids a plate of worms and curdled eggs. Edgar walks up saying he fixed the VCR.
Got that hamster out of the VCR.
Stephanie calls him a Mr. Fix-It.
You're such a Mr. Fix-It.
A moving truck pulls up, and Fred realizes a family is moving in next door. They have a girl, Ashley's age, and a boy, Fred's age. Military men take a bunch of boxes into the basement, and Edgar says it looks like their dad likes to tinker around in the basement like him. They agree to make the new neighbors a welcome basket, and they head off to meet them. The wife answers the door, screams, and slams it shut. She yells for her husband, who we learn is named Ben, and tells him there are zombies outside. He sees the Deadmans and hurries to board up the door. The Deadmans decide to walk around the side of the house and knock on the window. The daughter sees them and faints. Ben comes in and boards up the window. The Deadmans appear in the son's window, and the family blocks it with a bed. The dad tells them to stay calm and not panic.
Don't panic!
The Deadmans are still outside and believe that the family is shy. Inside, they are all running around. Ashley suggests to throw the neighbors a surprise party. Stephanie agrees and says they should decorate the neighbor's backyard for a barbecue.
Let's make it a Hawaiian luau!
They set everything up, Edgar knocks on the door, and they all hide. Ben comes out first, and the Deadmans surprise him. The rest of the family is also there. They introduce themselves. Ben's wife is named Betsy, and the kids are Biff and Bunny. The wife believes the Deadmans must be wearing costumes. Edgar feeds everyone a Hawaiian dish. Betsy asks if it's macaroni.
Close. It's maggot-roni.
You mean rigatoni?
Oh no, maggot-roni.
With fresh Maui maggots. Betsy and the kids all spit it out. Edgar figures they must be vegetarians. Edgar asks Ben what he does for a living, and Ben says he works in Area 51, and it's top secret. Edgar goes into Ben's basement to check out the equipment he's seen being unloaded. Ben tries to stop him, but he trips on Edgar's eye. Edgar sees a big machine under a tarp and asks what it is. Ben tells him it's a broken mechanism he is trying to fix. Edgar tells him his wife Stephanie calls him Mr. Fix-It. Ben tells him not to touch it though and suggests they go back to the barbecue. Outside, Stephanie is fishing Fred's big toes out of the pool. She finds them and asks Ben if he has any superglue. He says yes, it's in the kitchen, and quickly runs off. Edgar figures he is upset about not being able to fix the machine in the basement, and thinks he should go fix it for him.
It'd only be neighborly to help him out.
He pulls the tarp off the machine to reveal a rocket. He says it looks just like the VCR he fixed this morning, and that the clock looks a little slow. He presses the button beneath it, and the timer starts to go down. Edgar believes he fixed the machine and heads back outside. Ben tells Edgar that it's getting late. Edgar wants to give a toast before they leave to neighbors helping neighbors.
Just like I helped you with your clock downstairs.
How about why you touched the clock?
The rocket then explodes, engulfing the neighborhood. Edgar finishes giving his toast.
To a world of neighbors helping neighbors.
Next up is our last Igor's Science Minute, and is the only one that actually seems like a science experiment. Igor is on top of the Eiffel Tower with Phil in Paris.
Where gravity was invented.
And Phil is about to demonstrate the law of the uniformic acceleration of falling bodies.
I am.
Igor pulls a string on Phil's arm, and Phil begins to fall. The law Igor is testing states that two objects dropped at the same time, regardless of weight, will still hit the ground at the same time. Phil's limbs begin to separate as he is falling, and Igor takes a picture right before Phil hits the ground.
As we can see in this photo finish, every part hit the ground at the same moment.
Igor says next week they are going to study automatic reflex actions, then Phil chases him away. Bringing us to the final segment of the VHS, which opens up by the TV like it's going to be a Night of the Living Fred animation. Igor leaves to get more popcorn and tells Phil not to change the channel. Phil immediately changes the channel, and a man in a bunny costume appears. He calls himself Bunny Wunny.
It's Bunny Wunny, honey.
Igor leaps back in and scolds Phil, telling him he will have to suffer the consequences.
What consequences?
Igor sits down and starts reading from a book. That's right, it's a Melissa Screech segment. This one's titled Melissa Screech, Earth Ambassador. Melissa Screech is at space camp with her class. Melissa wanders off to explore by herself. She sneaks into a rocket ship. There's a big button that says Danger, Don't Touch.
And sure enough, she pressed it.
The rocket takes off and crashes onto a planet called Andromeda. Aliens surround Melissa, but fortunately, they're big fans of Earth. The ambassador introduces herself, and Melissa calls them ugly, pig-nosed aliens and demands to be taken back to Earth. The aliens, heartbroken, become angry. The aliens have a meeting and agree that a whole planet full of Melissa Screeches can't be allowed to exist. They hop in their flying saucers and begin to attack Earth. They destroy the planet before landing, only to learn that there was just one Melissa Screech, and they try to apologize to the Earthlings. Melissa is shown to have been thrown in jail, and Igor asks Phil if he learned not to touch buttons. Phil apologizes, and Igor goes to change back the TV channel.
It's not nice to switch off Bunny Wunny, baby.
If you made it to the end here, I want to say thank you for watching. Thank you for watching Trutoobz. And there's one more thing I want to quickly cover before you go, and it's the Toonsylvania video game. The Toonsylvania video game released in 2000 for the Game Boy Color and was developed by RFX Interactive and released by Light and Soft Production and Ubisoft. You play as Igor, navigating through 5 different worlds to collect parts of Phil that have been scattered around. Igor can collect inventions to add health and improve his combat, which is mainly punching. There's also the skull that Igor can throw. The final stage of the game is a boss fight with the devil. After defeating the devil, Igor collects Phil's head and puts him back together, ending the game, and ending this Toonsylvania Retrospective.